Happy Friday, everybody. One day closer to Raider football, one day closer to NFL football, one day closer to college football. It's going to be a great college football season. So many teams, I believe, legitimately have a chance to win the national championship. Why? Because there's some really good quarterbacks out there. Like, this is I wouldn't say unprecedented season for college quarterbacks, but keep an eye on the college quarterbacks. There's at least, I think, 7. I'm not saying that there's going to be 7 top 10 picks or anything like that. I do believe there's going to be at least 4 top 10 picks, 5 top 12 picks. But I think in terms of winning a national championship, I think there's 7, 8 quarterbacks out there that can, and with the equivalent of a good team, can win a national championship. So that thing's going to be wide open. The Raiders, a day closer to opening training camp over in Henderson, a day closer to us being able to get a chance to see Kirk Cousins, Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Jeanty, this new offensive line. It's the Morning Tailgate Show, by the way, with Vinny Bonsignor and Clay Baker, and that's kind of where we're going to start today, because the start is the start. But as the Raiders get ready to start that race or rev up the engines or get on the train, we always talk about the NFL season being a train, and once that train leaves the station, away it goes, and it's not going to slow down for anybody. You got to keep up or watch it pass you right by. But as the Raiders begin all the preparations, packing their suitcases, whatever it is, putting their running shoes on, whatever you want to use to describe it, and begin to preparations to run this long race, and it's a marathon, let's face it. Coming off a 3-win season, coming off 2 years of just 7 wins, a new head coach again. There's going to be a new quarterback in place. There's going to be a lot of new things in place, and there's a new direction. There's a new way of looking at things. There's a great young rookie draft class. There's a really good group of second-year players from last year's draft class. There's a lot to be excited about. I don't know that it's necessarily going to translate to wins necessarily this year. Obviously, for the Raiders, you hope it leads to as many wins as possible. But I don't know that you judge, at least right now, that you sit here and decide for yourself or say to yourself, and maybe you do. I'm not gonna argue with you whatsoever or tell you that's the wrong way to be. But at least from my perspective, I don't necessarily think as we sit here, closing out that first week of July, that you assess the Raiders' season or put a win total on the Raiders' upcoming season to define what you feel is going to be a successful season. And so what we're doing today, and I'll get Clay's thoughts here in just one second, is what are the 3 things that you need to see from the Raiders in a positive way for this to be considered, in your mind, a successful season? What 3 things do you need to see? I think, John Spytek, the Raiders general manager, set this all up the day that he came out and spoke to the media on the day that they fired Pete Carroll and started looking for a new coach, and kind of how he was framing that search and really setting the tone for this season, which was, this is going to be a process, and we're not focused on the finish line. And when he says finish line, he means winning a Super Bowl. That's the ultimate goal, is to win the Super Bowl. Is to, and even beyond that, from my estimation, is just build a team that you can each and every year say, or consistently say, hey, that's a team to watch for the whole thing. A competitive team. Right now we always look at, hey, the Los Angeles Rams, hey, the San Francisco 49ers, the Philadelphia Eagles, as teams, the Buffalo Bills, obviously the Kansas City Chiefs when Patrick Mahomes is healthy. I know that this burns a fire in the hearts of a lot of Raider fans, as it should, because you're hearing all these names being listed that I just listed, and the Raiders aren't one of them. There was a time when the Raiders were absolutely one of those teams, and that's what the goal is to become again. And I think that they have the right people in place to steer that ship in that direction, but they're not there just yet. That is the finish line, is to build a team that's consistently talked about among the other teams that legitimately, hey, that's a team to keep an eye on in terms of the Super Bowl again. You want to get to that point where that hate for the Raiders, if you want to call it that, is intertwined with begrudging respect. Like, yep, the Raiders again, got to go through Las Vegas. If you wanna, be a contender in the AFC and get to the Super Bowl, you better keep an eye on the silver and black again. God, we're getting sick of saying this, aren't we? The Raiders, got to go through the Raiders. That's where the Raiders want to get. That is the finish line. That's where they have their focus on. But obviously, they're not there yet. So you can't necessarily look at the 2026 season with that as your definition of success. At least I don't think that you should, because I don't think they're there yet. And that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. In fact, I think it's healthy to acknowledge that if you're the Raiders, because that means you're taking an honest look at yourself and you're looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, all right, we're not there yet to be even thinking about that. That's where we want to get. But to get there, as we continue to stress, we got to maximize every step along the way and cherish every opportunity to take that next step in the right way, not the wrong way, the right way, and not disrespect certain steps or miss certain steps because we're in a hurry. We're trying to do this thing too fast, and we stumble and we fall. How many times have the Raiders stumbled and fallen on that next step? You have to look at each next step. Respect, that's the key thing for me, is to respect each step along the way. And the thing is, there's times when you're taking that kind of an approach with a great appreciation for the process and for every next step, where all of a sudden you make up a couple of extra steps just by making so many good decisions that you're moving in a more rapid pace, in a pace where you ever do this where maybe you're on an elliptical machine and you're in a groove, right? And you're in step, you're in lockstep. Maybe there's some music that's blasting and a great beat, and all of a sudden you feel yourself, on this elliptical machine in some great unison where, man, I am maximizing this right now. My body's in tune, everything's in tune, my legs, my arms, everything just feels in tune and in sync. And you feel like you're moving faster. And I think that, again, if you keep respecting the next step and honoring it in the way you need to honor it and not overlook it, not disrespect it, not pretend that that's not a step that you have to take, you're going to get into that kind of a mode, and things are going to start happening quicker. The good things that you want are going to be coming into vision a lot quicker. But that's not quite where the Raiders are yet, and that's okay. So how, as you look at the 2026 season, what three things do you want to see happen, do you need to see happen in a positive way for you to say, you know what, maybe the wins weren't there, but this was a successful season because of A, B, and C. Clay Baker, I'm curious and
I'm glad you said that.
To get your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, especially about wins, because where the Raiders are at right now, there has to be steps to get to wins. Like, the wins are the outcome of good football, of doing the right things, and that's what the Raiders need to get to right now. So, in all seriousness, like, for the Raiders, you could have a loss, but yet you could see a lot of good things happening. If you couldn't close the game out, okay, that's not a good thing. But if there was if there were turnovers, if there was scoring, if there was timely third down conversions and efficiency, all the things that you didn't see in the last couple of years, I would still take that as all right, good, because I see consistent direction going in the right way. And if the win didn't happen that particular week, so be it. Okay, I have a feeling that if they consistently do this the next week, then the wins will come. So when you think about, all right, what three things do you want to see in order to see a successful season? What three things must happen in order for the Raiders to be successful? The wins, they're a product of something else. And, for me, it's got to come down to scoring. And I would like to see, as far as things happening, I would like to see the Raiders, average 22 points per game or more, because that's a great leap from where they were last year. But when you go through a coaching search and you try to fix an offense, you found the right guy in Clint Kubiak, and you vetted that search, and you know what he's able to do is he's made other teams as an offensive coordinator better in his stop, 3 different stops. And you know that if you are able to improve your points per game, that is a proof of concept that obviously the offense and the direction is going in the right direction based and led by your head coach and offensive coordinator. But last year, out of the top 15 teams in scoring, 10 of them went to the playoffs. So there is a true indication of going in the right direction, and it starts with the offense. And I just think as far as 22 points per game, that's what the Giants averaged. The New York Giants even averaged 22 points per game, as bad as that team is, and that team's got a lot of holes. So why not be the Giants, right? Why not get to that spot where you feel at least efficiency on offense and consistency is now scoring, and you now have put a new standard, a new barrier into which, all right, we have reached a certain plateau and we can go much further.
Yeah, to put that in perspective, what Clay just said, when you look at averaging 22 points a game, that would literally represent more than a touchdown better than what the Raiders did last year. They were in the 14-point range, 22 points. You do the math, that's 8 points. That's more than a touchdown per game, which would quite honestly be a real massive, obviously a massive jump, and that would be obviously fantastic. Now, the reason why, when you look at the Giants, they averaged 22 points a game, which was 8 points, obviously more than what the Raiders were averaging. The problem for the Giants was they gave up about 27 points per game. So
easily, yes.
So there, that's why. To kind of further our point, you have to kind of look at this and, all right, as we keep talking about, sort of checking off boxes, all right? If you can get the offense to 22 points a game, that literally, that is a turnaround right there. And that is a legitimately positive turnaround to score more than 8 points or 8 points more per game this year compared to last year. It's been a steady fall backwards for the Raiders. There was times, how many times, Clay, they can't get any worse than 19 points a game. Yeah, well, actually it did.
Right, and then it got to 17, right?
Yeah, cannot get any worse than this. It's all up. It's all up. No, not really. It fell to 14 points per game last year. So yes, without question,
like the 14 points, you would never expect any team in the modern era to get to that level on an average, right?
Yeah,
because that was the bottom, reaching the even further depths.
Yeah, and staying on that point, you talk about efficiency. 14 points per game indicates, screams. You get the loud drums out, banging the loud drums, the big horns. Inefficiency. That was the result of just inefficiency. And to me, there was no more. A prime example of that dysfunction, of that lack of efficiency than the offensive line. And that's kind of where I want to start. By the way, 9 a.m., we've got our good friend Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal will be in to talk about the latest developments with the NBA and Las Vegas. And trust me when I say Las Vegas is going to get an NBA team. An announcement's going to be fairly soon. About expanding to Las Vegas, expanding to Seattle. Thank goodness, can't wait to see the Seattle Supersonics back in business. But in addition to Seattle, Las Vegas is going to get an expansion team, and now everybody's lining up, and some powerful people, I might add, are lining up to be the owners of this next Las Vegas team, and we're going to get the latest developments on all that. Looking forward to hearing from Ed and all the great work that he's doing over at the Las Vegas Review-Journal. In addition to that, like I said, we're asking this question to our listeners, 702-365-9200. We'll get to a call that is already in. What 3 things do you need to see? I'll start off. I think the offensive line needs to show great improvement. I think there's a cliche, Clay, and I know, people say this. Every new general manager comes into a building and said, we want to build a team from the lines out, from the front. Yeah, right.
That's in the manual. for first class.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's football 101. And, we sometimes roll our eyes or we laugh. Okay, I've heard that before. But literally it's true. And there's no better example than the Raiders. The offensive line has been a mess, a hot mess, if you want to call it, for multiple years now. And I've always scratched my head about this, Clay, because, when the Raiders Colton Miller, to me, a premier left tackle in this league. Because I cover the team. When they bring new players in or when they draft new players, what do? You go look at the tape. You go watch the tape. Then you watch them in practice, and I see guys that are good. Clay, I see talent in the room. Now, last year that talent and that depth got tested. Far too much than any team wants to do, and between some guys that just weren't that very good and some guys that just weren't quite ready yet, some of the young players that just weren't quite ready yet, you had to rely on the Alex Kappas and Sloan Forsythe, and that just they weren't getting the job done. Period! Exclamation point. But when I do look at this group, I do see talent. And just go pull out the college tape of all the guys that the Raiders have brought in. Go watch them at practice and say, okay, I see an NFL player here. It might not be right now, right? For some of these guys, an offensive line is difficult to bridge that gap from college to the NFL. But you see the talent, you see the size, you see the athletic ability. You go talk to guys like Charles Grant and Caleb Rogers, and you go, okay, this guy's smart enough. You could tell the intelligence is there, the work ethic is there. You talk to people in the building about that work ethic, and you feel good about that. DJ Glaze, and you see, everything that you need to see, basically. And then you start wondering, why isn't this not turning over? Why isn't this happening quicker? Why are they getting worse? And I firmly believe that coaching had a lot to do with that the last couple of years. And Clay, we keep talking about this. When you think about that offensive line, DJ Glaze has been here, has completed 2 full seasons. How many offensive coordinators has this kid played under? How many offensive line coaches? They've had to pull the string on offensive line coaches. They did it in his rookie season. New offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach. All of a sudden, okay, we're doing something a little bit differently midstream. And then a new offensive coach and a new offensive line coach going into his second year. That didn't work, obviously. And then the offensive coordinator gets fired during the season. Next thing you know, there isn't a new offensive line coach, but there's some new direction because there's a new offensive coordinator. So some subtle things were being done differently. The point being is that when you think about a DJ Glaze who has talent, and a Jackson Powers Johnson who has talent, you start thinking about all the dysfunction from the coaching perspective, the messaging perspective, the new systems, the new starts, the stops, the midstream, bringing in a new coach and a new offensive line coach. All that to say, you got to imagine that his head was a couple of heads, not just those two guys, but everyone else that's been on this line now for a couple of years. It's not conducive to building chemistry. It's not conducive for cohesiveness, which is so critical with an offensive line. So I'm not giving anybody full on excuses. Guys need to get better. That's the bottom line. But if you look at it honestly, Clay, you could say, well, why wouldn't it be sort of dysfunctional a little bit from an individual player standpoint, trying to build a cohesive unit when the message keeps getting changed, when the direction keeps getting changed, and just when you think you're mastering one type of scheme or whatever it is, it's getting changed, and now you're learning a new system.
At the very base level, that dysfunction is based on mistrust. Like you could see after a while, for like let's somebody like DJ Glaze, you can see where there's not real trust in the scheme in the offensive line. You can see that whatever the game plan was, and then the results that are afterwards, you realize that this isn't working, and that if you keep going into that same well, trying to bring up another bucket of, all right, let's try it again for this week and this week and this week, and the losses keep mounting up, there's a lack of trust there, and then now you have instability, and you've now gone through 3 offensive line coaches for a guy like Delmar Glaze, who's been in there for 2 years. So, and has started a majority of all the games. So I would have to think like the dysfunction comes in the moment of like, all right, can we trust what's coming up next? Can we trust a pedigree of who's coming up next? And Rick Dennison checks those boxes.
Yeah, he absolutely does. But also what it leads to is playing with indecision and uncertainty of what like you're questioning things. Whether it's the trust that you have in what this coach is asking you to do, or just a general kind of uncertainty about what you're supposed to do because your head's kind of spinning. This is not, when you think about offensive line play, people might roll their eyes, but it's kind of like calculate. It's a hard thing to do. There's so many things that are dependent on it, above and beyond just what you do for your particular, from your assignment, perspective. Because what you're doing is connected to the guy right next to you. Sometimes that's two guys. If you're the center, you're looking to your right, you're looking to your left. That's two people that are kind of relying on you to do your job, and then outward from that point on. There's a lot of complications. There's a lot of intricacy, I guess is the better word, to playing the offensive line. And if five dudes are playing with a level of uncertainty, whether they want to admit it or not. Nobody's going to come out and say, man, I'm really, quite honestly, my head's spinning right now. And I go out there pretty tentatively because of that, because of, trying to learn this new system. Nobody's going to actually come out and say that, nor should they. But you watched the offensive line last year. That's whether it was the uncertainty of what each player's role was or just a bad level of teaching, because there's so much teaching that's going on at all positions, but in particular with the offensive line in terms of what you need to be doing, what we need to be doing as a five-player unit to make this all work, because it does all start there. And if five individual players are playing with a level of uncertainty, that is going to be felt in a massive, massive way. So that's one of the reasons why I think that this offensive line has been held back between just the constant dysfunction, the constant changing, and in last year's case, on top of all that, I don't think the offensive line coach was in line with the offensive coordinator. That was a forced marriage to me, and I think that was felt, and I think that there was just ineffective teaching from the offensive line coach himself to his group, and it just all felt really bad there, and it was displayed on the field. Real quick, let's go to Stay Tuned in Las Vegas. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, man? I don't know if I was ever going to make this call because you hit all the points damn near right on the head, so you did a good job with that one. But I feel like there's a lot of parallels with with my kind of three answers. I really have five, but
go ahead.
Kind of right on the money. But yeah, number one is offensive line, and I think the one thing I want to see, if I guess we were to kind of hone down and put it in a nutshell, I got to see 10 games with this offensive line together, particularly the last 10 games. If whatever they need to figure out in the beginning of the year, they can figure out. If you can just give me the same offensive line for the last 10 games of the year, I think that would hit on and roll into the next year, obviously, along with Vinny's talking about and what everyone wants to see from that offensive line. So, and that's the continuity that he's talking about, and that we all need to see the confidence with the offensive line, and whoever emerges in those last 10 games, let's stick to it, and let's try to roll with that right into next year. That is number one. That is 100%. We're going to go in chronological order here. That is number one, regardless of how everything else works out with the rest of the team. Number two, my big thing with number two is I want us to have a winning record when it comes to games won or lost by 3 points. So many of these games that we're losing, the small margins, that has to change. We don't have to win a lot of games, but when we are fighting these games like the Chicago Bears last year,
yes.
I mean, those things just kill. I mean, you feel that for the whole month. It's so hard to shake those off. If we can win those games, just the small margin games, and start there, and we'll worry about the other ones later, I think that would change the mood around the room when it just comes to the fight of what us fighting together. Because when you win those really close games, you scratch and you claw together, and that's what's gonna we'll figure out who's how the cream's gonna rise to the top as the season goes on. So winning record when it comes to games, 3 points or less, right? And then the last thing, or number three, that I'd like to see is we can't fire these coaches, man. We got to keep them this year, and the players have to know that. whether we just make it obvious, we flat out say these coaches aren't going anywhere. So if you have a problem with them or something that you can't work out, they're going to be there next year. So one thing I loved about what Derek Carr said when he worked with Kubiak in New Orleans, he said, you know what? He's all about his business. If you're not on plan or not on par, he ships you out of there quick. We're moving on. You know, that Kubiak needs that at least for the first 2 years. So if you're not on board, we need to know, and we need to know fast. No, we're not drawing nothing out. There's got to be no hidden mysteries behind it. We need to know if you're on board, and if you're not on board, we need to ship you out so we can get somebody else who is on board. And that means continuity amongst the coaching staff. If the players feel like, oh, well, we're not sure if he's going to leave next year, well, players are not sure if they really, truly have to buy in. And I think Josh McDaniels struggled with that because he had guys like Waller who weren't buying in. I hate to name drop, but, you know, a lot of players, that was the big issue, right, is that we had this new coach, we had Devontae Adams, and we had guys that we thought we were going to be great. And there were actually guys on the team that weren't buying in. We have to fish those guys out early. So you have to give and back this coaching staff up with as much authority as possible. So, you know, like I said, offensive line, close games, and keep the coaches. All right? You guys have a good morning. Love your show. Not a first-time caller, but love you. I listen all the time, so I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right. Stay tuned. That's
stay
great.
tuned. Stay tuned.
Yes. What a call.
Yeah, very much so, and I think that he hit everything right on the top of the head. What do you think? What 3 things do you need to see in a positive way above and beyond the record? Hey, sometimes if those 3 things hit, Clay, sometimes maybe the record's going to be much better than what we think right now. But what are they? What 3 things do you need to see for this season next in 2026 to be considered a success for you? 702-365-9200. It's the Morning Tailgate with Vinny Bonsignore and Clay Baker.
They're sexiest.
Going to put his right knee down at the 39, so a 49-yard attempt for Carlson. Ball will be put down on the right hash. This to give the Raiders the lead. Good snap. Solid hold. Carlson's right-legged boot is angling right, and it's no good.
My big thing with number 2 is I want us to have a winning record when it comes to games won or lost by 3 points. So many of these games that we're losing to small margins, that has to change. We don't have to win a lot of games, but when we are fighting these games like the Chicago Bears last year,
yes.
I mean, those things just kill. I mean, you feel that for the whole month. It's so hard to shake those off. If we can win those games, just the small margin games, and start there, and we'll worry about the other ones later. I think that would change the mood around the room when it just comes to the fight.
I completely agree. I can't argue with any of that. 702-365-9200. What do you need to see? What 3 things do you need to see in a positive way that would ultimately help deem this 2026 Raider season a success for you? Call it a massive step in the right direction, giving you hope for the future, and which is what I really think that success or a successful for my money, a successful season for the Raiders, and above and beyond the wins. We'll see what it all adds up to at the end of the season, but is solidifying some things where if the offensive line is playing at a much higher level, it's such a young offensive line that creates real hope, Clay. It wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, they played really well, but that guy's 36, that guy's 33, that guy's 34. Like, that's not the case at all. In fact, it's outside of Colton Miller. This is an extremely young offensive line. Even Tyler Linderbaum is 25 years old. I mean, we know him. It feels like he's older because he's been doing it at such a high level for an extended period of times. But he's just now entering his prime. If this offensive line can really take a massive step forward, which I believe is truly available, and when I say massive step forward, There's no way that there was a worse offensive line than the Raiders last year. I don't need Pro Football Focus to tell me that whatsoever, all right? It's clear. They were the worst running team in the NFL. Their quarterback was sacked the most times in the NFL. The passing game was among the worst in the NFL. All of their the outlier statistics were among the worst in the NFL, if not dead last in the NFL. And you don't pummel to those types of numbers, to that type of inefficiency across the board, because you have a good offensive line. It's usually because, and obviously, you have a bad offensive line. So every time you see a 32, 32, 31, 32 ranking on all the key statistics, I'm telling you right now, your offensive line is terrible, and that was the case last year. We don't need anything. All due respect to Pro Football Focus, I didn't need them to tell me that the Raiders were the worst offensive line in the NFL. But if they could go from 32, if you just want to use PFF as the number arbitrator, into the top 15, that is just a game changer for the Raiders, and there is recent precedent, I might add, Clay, for this coaching staff, literally this coaching staff, Clint Kubiak, Andrew Janocko, Rick Dennison, recent history of that exact thing happening. The Seattle Seahawks had the worst offensive line in the NFL in 2024 by all sorts of measurements, including Pro Football Focus. Last year, I want to say they ended the season 14th or 15th, whatever, 15th, 14th. That was a massive improvement. I don't have to tell people what that ultimately meant, how that contributed, what a contributing factor that was for the Seattle Seahawks, who were a pretty good team regardless. So I'm not suggesting that the Seattle Seahawks offensive line going from 32nd to 15th was the only reason they ended up winning the Super Bowl. No. They did their job at a high level, surrounded by a team that was pretty good, a defense that was just lights out great, and that defense had been coming, and it was pretty good the year before. So there was a lot of different things. Sam Darnold coming in and improving that quarterback position, the run game being better because the offensive line, all sorts of different reasons. There was talent in place, is what I'm saying. But if the Raiders can make a similar jump along the offensive line with a coaching staff that literally just did it last year in Seattle, if that can happen for this offensive line, everything is going to look so much better. Obviously, they're not going to win the Super Bowl. Not projecting that, not predicting that, not even thinking about that. But I'm telling you right now, the wins are going to be there will be an improvement on the 3 wins, and probably significantly so. And to be perfectly honest, significant for me, Clay, in terms of wins, is if you're telling me that the Raiders can win 4 to 5 more games, I know that doesn't seem a lot. Well, that's because the starting point is so far behind. You're talking about 3 wins. So if you improve by 5 wins, by 4 wins, which I think most teams would take, if you won 9 games last year, would you not take a 4-win improvement? Wouldn't that be fantastic, right? So if you're measuring it by that, that's a significant new win total. It's just, unfortunately for the Raiders, their starting point is 3 wins, not 9 wins. So the 9 wins to 12 wins or 13 wins, to me, I'm looking at next year and in the future for that type of a jump. We're going to go back out to the Raider Nation Radio listener line because Papa Meach is in Colorado. What are you doing? How's it going, Papa Meach?
2 favorite interviews of the Raider Legacy Lounge. I'm talking to both of them. And by the way, hip hip hooray, welcome back, quarterback Clay.
Thanks, Papa.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, the 3 things I've been thinking about, guys, are kind of tied into the offense, but number 1, points scored, winning and losing. You got to win more games, and so my feeling is at least the minimum is we have to double our wins over last year, go from 3 to 6.
But what needs to happen? That's the key to that. Of course, we need 3 things that need to happen for that to even be a consideration.
Right, and the things that need to happen to make that happen, and I predict there'll be 8 and 9. But anyway, the 3 things need to happen. 2 of those things are based on the offense, because if the offense starts scoring in the red zone, who brought up what great listener brought up, Clay, the minus or plus 4 or whatever? Who was that?
Yeah, Fabian Ramirez. A noted scholar.
Yeah, that was one of the greatest comments of all time that will ever be made on the morning tailgate. And he said he was tired of the Raiders getting into the red zone and then leaving the 4 points and only settling for 3. So that's going to change, I think, right there in the offense.
Nice.
And then secondly, in the offense, the thing that has to change to make that an 8-9 season or whatever is no more 3-and-outs, because we just gassed the defense all season long last year because we couldn't sustain drives. Even if the drives fizzle after a while, you got to give the defense rest. And so I think that's the key, again, on the offensive side. And, of course, we just have to see improvement on special teams, I think, too, because I thought our special teams were horrendous last year. So those would be my 3 things.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Papa Meach.
I like it. I like it a lot. Red zone offense. First of all, you got to get to the red zone. So, and then of course with Papa Meach, and I think that ducktailed into his no more 3-and-outs. Cut down on the 3-and-outs, because as bad as the Raiders were in the red zone, they were even worse getting to the red zone. Just putting themselves in position just to even get 3 points, and a couple of extra field goals last year would have literally led to a couple of extra wins, including that game against the Chicago Bears that you just played the audio from. If they kicked that field goal, they win the football game, but they didn't, and they lost that football game. So go ahead.
You could think of those 3 games, the Broncos on that Thursday night. There were opportunities there, but also for the special teams, a missed extra point against the Jaguars, like that. That is unsettling, and the way Stay Tuned had talked about it it was just a great call, but it was also it's very telling. Like, that was really self-defeating. That was one in which you just felt like once you missed that extra point in the middle of the game, you knew that was going to come back and haunt you later on.
It usually always does. So I'm looking at the Raiders' offensive rushing total last year, 32nd in the NFL. Passing offense, 28th. In the NFL. Let's look at team offense, total yards, last in the NFL. Those are just numbers that it tells the entire story. The Raiders defense was actually better than the Giants defense, statistically. All right. So, and the Giants, scored 22 points a game. I want to say they had one more win than the Raiders. Right. Despite the fact that they scored 8 more points than the Raiders. How does that all add up? Well, the Giants' defense was worse than the Raiders. That was their part of their kryptonite. The Raiders were just bad were really. I mean, they were historically bad. I don't know if they were literally historically bad. I have to imagine that they were historically bad as an offense. Like if we were to go crunch the numbers and say, where does this rank from a historical standpoint? I can't imagine that being last in all of those, everything that I just mentioned, or among the worst. I think they were last in 3 different categories, and top 5 worst or lowest 5 worst. I can't imagine there's a lot of historical precedent for that, or that wouldn't put them in some bad company in terms of history. It is what it is. But for me, it does start, with that offensive line. So that for me is number one. I need to see that to be a success. I'm going to go back to Fernando Mendoza.
And having a good offensive line does improve your third down percentages,
everything.
And it helps your red zone offense. I mean, the Raiders last year only had 36 red zone attempts. Their defense had 64 red zone attempts that they had to cover. So you could think about your defense had double the amount of red zone attempts to cover than the offense actually had to go and have an opportunity to score in.
Yeah. My number 2, this might be a little bit controversial, because I know that there's a lot of people who are just sit Fernando. Don't need to see Fernando in 2026. I disagree. And I'm not saying he has to start day 1, but I am saying that I truly believe he needs to play a significant amount get a significant amount of playing time. 8 to 8 plus games. I'll put it that way. 8 plus games is what I think is something that we need to see from Fernando Mendoza. But that's not the success part of it. I need for this to be a successful season. I think the Raiders need to have a pretty good idea of what they have in Fernando Mendoza, and all the better, obviously, if he's a quarterback that when the season's over John Spytek and Tom Brady and Mark Davis and Clint Kubiak can put their heads on their pillows, with a real comfort level that we've got the quarterback position solved. That is going to be a dude moving forward. That's somebody that we can truly build this whole thing around and feel confident that if we take care of business everywhere else, this is a quarterback that's going to keep us in contention year after year after year, because he's that kind of a dude. I think for this season to be successful, for me to look at this season and say, okay, the wins might not have been here, but this is one of the reasons why I believe that 2026 was a very successful season for the Raiders, is solving the quarterback position, the long-range quarterback position, getting an understanding of that. And that would mean, Clay Baker, Fernando Mendoza getting on the field for a significant amount of time in order for the Raiders and the fan base to get a really good read and a really good, hopefully, comfort level that he's a dude, and that he's the kind of guy to build a championship caliber team around.
Especially this year, it's absolutely paramount that he has moments to shine, moments and opportunities to be in there and get meaningful snaps, meaningful football, productive football. And I'm starting to warm on that, because it feels like I put like 6 games. I'm just trying to find some sort of arbitrary number of like, what is a good sample size that I would like to see in out of Fernando Mendoza. You never know how this is all going to shake up, but beyond the long-term needs for it, I need to see a short-term need for it. I need to see just a slight glimpse of what a return on investment could be down the road, because you have to start thinking for the future no matter what in certain aspects. But for this season alone, I think, like as we talked about yesterday, who could be a possible breakout candidate? That could be him right there.
That 1,000%. 1,000%.
He could be a breakout candidate that helps you get over the hump.
Absolutely, and if for him, there's levels of breaking it out. There's a 1 to a 2, a 2 to a 3, a 3 to a 4. You know what I'm saying? Like Max Crosby can break out. Max Crosby can go from being what he's been, which is one of the best, most dynamic pass rushers in the game. And shout out to him. He got a lot of praise in a recent poll for being just that. But imagine if Max was able to, in a breakout way, stay healthy for the entire duration of a season, be in great physical shape throughout the course of the season, and all of a sudden his sacks go to that 16, 17, 18 range. That would be a breakout for him, even though he's the ultimate player as it is. But there's still room for him to grow. But yes, I think that a breakout season for Fernando Mendoza to really solidify that position and give everybody hope that that he's like I said, a dude, I think is really important. That means him getting on the field. Clay, you've got something to give away, I hear.
All right, it's time for the word of the day for our Summer of Fun, brought to you by Raider Nation Radio 920 and Terribles. The Summer of Fun gives you a chance to get a bit of an escape by simply texting in the word of the day to 702-365-9200. Until 5 p.m. today, type the word hiking. Hiking, H-I-K-I-N-G, hiking, and you get a chance to win a fantastic vacation to New York City, the Big Apple, flights out of LAX, and a 3-night stay in a nice Manhattan hotel. Text the word hiking to 702-365-9200, and it's all brought to you by Terribles and Raider Nation Radio 920. It's the Summer of Fun. Welcome back to Raider Nation Radio. It's the morning tailgate. Thanks for joining us here. Vinny Bonsignor, Clay Baker here with you. Up on the text line, 702-365-9200. We'll take texts and calls into the second hour as well. Ty in Missouri checking in on what 3 things you need to see for the Raiders to have a successful season. He has a litany, but he has 3 good ones here. Number 1, at least a small taste of success from Fernando at some point in the season. I like it. Number 2, the defense and someone besides Max actually taking a step forward for once. Yes. And number 3, win more games at home or put up enough fight to feel like we could have a real home field advantage someday. Thank you, Ty in Missouri. I didn't think about that, about a home field advantage. That would be something that would be a signs of an indication of going forward, people doing the right things.
Yeah, that would be that actually is super important. So excellent point there, because you want to set a precedent at home. You want to set a standard at home that if you're going to come to Allegiant Stadium, life is going to be difficult. Number one, number two, the more games you win at home, the more times it sets up for the future where it's going to be a Raider crowd. Look, Clay. We've seen all the photos. We've been at all the games, so we see sometimes the disparity. But we've also seen whether it was the Baltimore Ravens that one night,
Yes.
Monday night to start it, it was a full-on Raider crowd.
Great
There's always
atmosphere.
going to be a segment of fans from the other team. And that's not exclusive to Allegiant Stadium. I travel all over the country for NFL football. NFL fans travel to go see their teams play. So you're going to see that regardless. But you don't want to see where it's 50-50 or 40-60 or something along those lines. I think the more you win, Clay, at home, the more you're setting yourself up to be able to have a much better home field advantage. And when Allegiant Stadium is rocking and rolling with Raider fans, that is a special, special place.
All right, let's get more thoughts. 702-365-9200. What are the three things you need to see in order for the Raiders to be successful in this upcoming season? We'll get your thoughts next here on Raider Nation Radio 920.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the morning tailgate. Hey, by the way, congratulations to Brock Bowers. I feel like we're going to be doing this quite often throughout the rest of his career, but was voted by NFL executives, coaches, and scouts as the number 1 tight end. I think he tied with Trey McBride with the Cardinals, and you look at the statistics, and obviously Trey had a better statistical season than Brock Bowers last year, but let's all remember Brock Bowers was injured the entire year, basically, literally the entire year, missed a whole bunch of games, so you can't always go by statistics. We all know that Brock Bowers is the best tight end in the league. Hats off to Trey McBride. He's a good young tight end as well with the Arizona Cardinals, but congratulations to Brock for being acknowledged by the important people in the NFL for what exactly he is, which is the best tight end in the NFL. It's the Morning Tailgate Show. Charles is in Oregon with his thoughts on what he needs to see, the 3 things, maybe more, that he needs to see for this season to be successful in his mind.
Hey, good morning. Happy Friday, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Good, thanks.
Great. So the first thing that I would want to see, this is going to sound kind of basic, but good fundamental football. I want to see consistency with, in other words, watching the Raiders over the years, when it's 3rd down and 15 and they're on defense, I don't want to be nervous that they're going to give up 16, 17 yards. I don't want to see, our running back getting hit in the backfield repeatedly. What I want to see is, hey, I trust it's 3rd down and 1. We're going to get that. We're going to get 3 or 4 yards. There's going to be consistent blocking, but good fundamental football in all aspects. Special teams, I want to see that kick or punt return this year for a touchdown. In fact, more than one, multiple big plays on special teams would be huge. Secondly, what I would want to see is Spytek's cooking with hot grease. So what I mean by that is, I know a lot of the picks last year were maybe influenced by Pete Carroll, but, he's still responsible as GM. The picks and, picking up Quay Walker, picking up Taron Johnson. I want to see Jack Besh be physical and produce. I want to see Deontay Thornton, where's that speed, getting open. And I want to see these draft picks develop over the year to where by the end of the year you see the core of what Spytek's put down with his draft picks and in free agency. And the third thing I want to see, and Vinny, you already touched on it quite well, but I have to say this. By the end of the year, you need to look at Fernando Mendoza and say, we got our franchise quarterback, and here we go. By the end of the year, it can't be, oh, he looked pretty good. Oh, he made a few good plays, but you know what? No. By the end of the year, I want to see enough of Fernando to where we go, we got our guy. So those are my 3 big things. You guys have a great weekend. God bless.
You too, Charles.
Very nice.
I appreciate that. By the way, and I only know, I'm only saying this. I'm not the grammar police whatsoever, but I know that it's really important for Thornton. It's Dante Thornton. It's an easy mistake to make with Deontay, but it drives him crazy. So just having his back, it's Dante Thornton, and I agree with you, and I totally agree with you with Fernando Mendoza. I can't sit here and agree with John Spytek about this. This isn't about the finish line. We're not focused on the finish line. I can't, on one hand, sit here and say that that I agree with him on that, but then be such a prisoner of the moment. And in this what I'm saying that this time I'm saying a prisoner of the 2026 season, and be so fixated with the possibility that Kirk Cousins gives you a little bit of a chance more to win right now than Fernando Mendoza because of his age, because of his experience in this offense. I can't be such a prisoner in the moment to base my decision on who needs to play or who should play quarterback just based on that. I have to take the big picture. I have to take that finish line down the line into account, and part of that really necessitates me getting a firm understanding, on what you have with Fernando Mendoza, but also helping. I wouldn't say, I'm not trying to skip steps here either. I think part of the steps that you need to take is investing development time in Fernando Mendoza, and I believe the best way to develop is to actually play. So you're serving multiple different masters just by getting Fernando out there. Number one, the one of, hey, what do we really have in Fernando Mendoza, and having a pretty good idea of that by the end of the season. Hopefully, it's all right. This guy's a dude. That's something that we feel really good about moving forward. Let's go now. Continue to build this team out because we feel like we've got the ultimate answer at the ultimate position. Number one. Number two, the master of, hey, look, put it this way. Charles just said, if you're doing this better, you're doing that better, and, you feel good about this, you feel good about that. What if you do all of those things, Clay, but you still go into 2027 going, now I wonder what we have in Fernando Mendoza? Like, don't you want to have part of that taken care of a little bit?
Yes, you
why
must.
Put that off just to be a prisoner in the moment in the possibility that you're going to win a few more games right now with Kirk Cousins, or the theory that, you're going to win a few more games with the veteran quarterback compared to the rookie quarterback. How much is that really worth to you in one singular season? Because, look, even if you win 9 games with Kirk Cousins, what does that truly mean? He's not going to be the quarterback here for the future. He's probably, even in that scenario, not going to be the quarterback in 2027. So, I understand that that it's important to win football games. I'm not discounting that at all, but I think it's just as important to know what you have in Fernando Mendoza and to really expedite his development so that you're creating that positive future for yourself, for your young quarterback, and putting him in a much better position, you and your team. Because it's just as important, Clay, for me, for him to develop a chemistry with a Brock Bowers, for him to develop a chemistry with a Trey Tucker or Jack Besh, and have cohesion with Tyler Lindenbaum, have cohesion with the running back, be in sync with the offensive line. I think all of those things are extremely critical, and you can really not just expedite it, but get put some real building blocks in place for that chemistry simply by him getting on the field. You're not going to get reps in practice during the season if you're not the number one quarterback. You're going to be over there on the scout team. What good does that do you in terms of developing chemistry with your key young players? You have to get on the field to get that going, and so I think that's really important for Fernando.
The whole basis of this conversation is to gauge progress, and you can't say that not playing Fernando Mendoza in a healthy amount of games is progress. Now, because you're delaying the inevitable. And quite honestly, there's something inevitable just about having Kirk Cousins starting at all, because every bad throw or something that didn't go right is going to be scrutinized and criticized, and everyone's going to be like, get the kid in there. Get Mendoza. He would have made that throw. He would have made that first down by running for the sidelines. All that stuff will happen. It's inevitable, and we can't pretend it's not. So why not start seeing progress right now in what you have? Because this is not a third-round pick. This is your first overall pick. That's a Heisman Trophy winner. He has that pedigree of being the guy, and also, quite honestly, the identity of your football team going forward.
Yeah, and the counter argument was you don't want to crush him, or you don't want to overwhelm him and all that, and that's the wrong route for a young quarterback. But there's just too many examples now recently, Clay, of young quarterbacks who have come in and done a good job right off the bat, or even if it wasn't great in the cases of like. We've talked about Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears his first year, and Drake May his first year with the Patriots. It wasn't good that first year, but by getting them on the field and straightening out that learning curve and allowing them to develop the chemistry that we were talking about, and also maybe figure out, hey, got to fix the offensive line, got to help them with this, got to help them with that. All of those experiences in those two guys' cases help them in year two to do really special things, let alone the Jaden Daniels and the C.J. Stroud guys who hit from, basically from day one. We talked yesterday about Derek Carr. And how he started his rookie year. And guess what? They were 3-13. They were one game worse than they were the year before. I don't think the Raiders team itself is I think the team that is going to take the field for the Raiders above and beyond the quarterback is better, in 2026 than it was his rookie season. So I don't see a 3-13 season, even if Fernando Mendoza is the starter. But the point being is that all of that set up, all of those experiences, the chemistry, that Derek, got to gain with his teammates, the practical experience that he got to learn from, good, bad, and different. The next year they won 7 games. That was a 4-game improvement from the year before. And then the year after that, it's a 12-win season. So there was a progression. It had to start somewhere, and it was rough. Okay, there's the possibility that's going to be rough for Fernando Mendoza, but it doesn't have to be crushing. And I don't know. I just feel like we just get so fixated on being worried about what this might mean. In recent time, I mean, who are the quarterbacks that have been crushed by that? I don't necessarily think that you've ever had recently a really good quarterback just get killed off by the situation that they were in. I think in the cases where it didn't work because the guy wasn't very good. All right,
right.
Baker Mayfield had to learn up and down. He's turned into a viable quarterback. Even Sam Darnold was bad, obviously, but that team that he played with, the teams I should say, Carolina Panthers and the New York Jets were really bad. But it didn't destroy him. He just won a Super Bowl, for crying out loud. So even in cases where it wasn't very good, there's examples of it turning pretty good. And if the quarterback is good enough, which I believe Fernando Mendoza is, he's going to survive all the trials and tribulations and not be broken by that. If that is your concern, if that's one of your big worries, I don't think that should be a concern with Fernando Mendoza.
I don't think so either. And we could take a look at his mental makeup from last year, and even in Cal, this is somebody that has dealt with adversity and continues to rally back. He doesn't let things offset him and take him down. And I think there's something to be said about his ability to prepare that we've learned from Curt Cignetti, and his ability to prepare and to process information on the fly. He spoke with Max Crosby on the Rush podcast, and he kind of hinted at while the relationship between he and Kirk Cousins, and one main thing that he got from Cousins so far as they are joined here on Raider Nation Radio.
The advice that he's given me is just off preparation. And you see a common theme with all, great quarterbacks and them being prepared, if not over-prepared, and them making sure they're doing everything possible and being prepared to the max, to the max point in order to best serve their teammates and and give themselves the best chance to succeed on Sundays. And seeing the lengths that Kirk has gone to on the mental aspect of it, and the way that he stays after hours, is there till 7 p.m. at night studying, is something that I look up to and I'm looking to replicate and get my process refined off his.
Preparation goes a long way, especially for a rookie quarterback in his first year, to go and not only deal with what is at hand, but also having to deal the rigors of a season when you're constantly having to learn about the next opponent.
Yeah, one thing that I think shapes or bodes well for for Fernando Mendoza being successful in making the transition here to the Raiders as a rookie is exactly what he went through last year. It's worth putting into perspective what he was stepping into going from Cal to Indiana. All right, so Indiana was a team that literally felt like they were a quarterback away from winning the national championship. They were a playoff team the year before. He wasn't going to save Indiana and pull them up from their bootstraps and do all this was going to be a major rebuild. It was literally a ready-made team at the University of Indiana. They had made the playoffs the year before, got crushed by Notre Dame. Their quarterback, O'Rourke, who's now with the San Francisco 49ers, was basically playing on a bad knee that needed surgery. So they understood, hey, we got a really good football team here. We need to go get a high-level quarterback that can help us get over the hump. And it shaped everything in the decision-making of Cignetti, of Coach Cignetti, to the point where here's Fernando Mendoza playing in an entirely different offense at Cal. There was going to be a learning curve for him going to Indiana with high expectations, which, by the way, that's not the case here with the Raiders. There is not enormous pressures being put on his shoulders this year. Ultimately, it will, because he's supposed to be that guy, and their pressure comes with that. But coming into this situation with the Raiders is far different than what he encountered in Indiana, which is, hey, dude, we got to win right now, man. So there's little room for a massive learning curve here, which it's a transition. You're going from one offense to another. You're going from Cal in Berkeley, California to Bloomington, Indiana. It's an entirely new team. It's a veteran team that had winning, like the highest level types of expectations. We need you to hit the ground running, with the understanding that you're not going to hit the ground running because there is going to be a transition. So how do we figure that out and make it work early on so that we don't lose a game here or there or stumble or stub our toe because you're not in complete command of this offense just yet? So what they did was they structured a game plan early on around where Fernando Mendoza was as far as transitioning and getting embedded in the Indiana offense and the Indiana way of doing things, the chemistry with his teammates. And in college football, there isn't a whole lot of time. You get a certain amount of time that you could be on the field practicing and meeting. You still got to go to school, all of those things. So you have to work around the time restrictions. And I give Cignetti a lot of credit for building game plans that fit where Fernando Mendoza was, and then gradually giving him more and more and more and opening up the playbook more and more and more, understanding that there's going to be times where he's going to struggle, but his struggles, we're not going to put so much on his plate that those struggles become the reason why we don't win a game or lose a football game. And you can't in college football. You can't lose 2 games, Clay, and make the playoffs. So you had to do that carefully and make sure the quarterback, to wherever he is with us right now, whatever that starting point is right now, we need to make sure that that's not the reason we lose a football game. And then keep building off of that. And so early on, Fernando was, maybe he wasn't the reason that they were losing, but by the end of it, he was the reason that they were winning, and that's because they carefully and prudently brought him along, acknowledging and respecting the transition that he was going to have. So he's gone through that type of a thing where he's learning a new offense. There's a lot of pressure. You have to play within yourself. There will be a day where we're putting it all on your shoulders, but that day is not here right now. Of course, that's not going to be the case early on with the Raiders. There's going to be some mistakes. Let's not let them be killer mistakes. They may be in the NFL. But again, there's not the expectations with the Raiders that there were at Indiana. So again, to me, he's wired really well for this, just based on what he did last year. This wasn't that wasn't at Indiana. It wasn't a culmination, Clay. It wasn't a whole bunch of kids that showed up as freshmen 3 years ago. We're going to turn this program around. This is going to be great. And you grew and grew and grew as a team, as a recruiting base, all that type of things. He had to literally just jump into the scene, parachute in, right at the very beginning of spring, of spring, and learn it. And hey, you're going to be hopefully the reason that we win, which he ultimately became, even though that wasn't who he was to start out with, which proves to me that he's fully capable of making a transition, starting at a certain point, building off of that, and then becoming the guy that you want him to be. But I firmly believe that you should start that process as soon as possible.
More from the text line at 702-365-9200. Omar from the Bay says the 3 things I need to see for a successful season. Number 1, competent offensive line play. Number 2, pass rush, opposite max, and overall promise for the defense under Rob Leonard. Number 3, for Mendoza to start some games and give us some hope for the future for that position. Omar in the Bay, thanks for that thought. Okay, so there's 3 components there, and we've talked about offensive line play and also Mendoza to start some games and give you hope for that position for the future. But again, a pass rush, opposite max, and overall promise for the defense under Rob Leonard. It makes you wonder, like, where is that pass rush going to come from? Is it a collection, or is it one player or maybe 2 players that might come up for that kind of goal? Because he needs that help.
Yeah, it would be great if it was Kwity Paye, because he's going to be here for a little while. In Malcolm's case, that's not guaranteed. He's not guaranteed to be here beyond this season because he's under contract for just 1 more year. It'd be great if it was Kieran Crawford. Let's face it, that would be really good if he could flash. And by the end of the year, you feel like, hey, we've got the makings of a pretty good young pass rusher over here. So yeah, I think that that defensive line and some legitimate pass rush coming from some people not named Max Crosby would be extremely important. I'm gonna one of my third one, to be honest with you, and maybe there'll be more. I'm not gonna hold myself to that, Clay. So I got to see this young secondary. This young secondary has a chance, and this is not hyperbole. I truly believe that this young secondary right now, and I include Eric Stokes in there. He's going to be around. He's signed a 3-year contract, I think it was. He's still really young. And body-wise, because there were limited games sometimes with the Packers because he was dealing with some kind of minor injuries. They weren't major injuries, so no worry in terms of the long term. But there was some management that needed to occur. The Raiders kind of figured that out, and he was able to play a full slate of games last year. So body-wise, he's not your typical guy that just played his 5th year in the NFL. There's a lot of thread left on that tire. So he's going to be here, I believe, for a little while. So Traydon Stukes, Jamon McCoy, Darian Porter, the young safety from Arizona, if he can flash. This Massis from Cal, who the Raiders are really high on. Let's see if he can translate from shorts and shoulder pads to now full pads and be the physical player that the Raiders are going to need him to ultimately be. If this young secondary, which has so much promise, can really solidify itself as, hey, not have to worry necessarily about drafting a cornerback next year or a safety. We feel really good about what we're doing in the secondary with the youth and the potential. I think that would bode really well as well.
Yeah, I do too, and I kind of felt like, as far as like the components of what a successful season would look like, I had the points per game at like 22 points. That's like middle of the league, and since the Giants were able to do that, I kind of felt like maybe the Raiders could take a page out of what the Jags were able to do on their defense. Last year the defense for the Jags had 22 interceptions in 2025. In 2024, the Jags had 6 interceptions. Okay, so there was a major leap. And I was wondering if the Raiders could maybe get to that middle of the pack at least. Maybe get up to somewhere between like 13 to 16 interceptions. That's obviously a jump from 8 last year. But it seems like the ball hawking nature of the guys they have drafted shows you kind of like a propensity of how Rob Leonard wants to go and also attack and find explosivity in the secondary in ways that we have heard defensive coordinators talk about in previous training camps and previous summers of how they want to get to the ball. Well, finding the kind of personnel in the draft kind of like really puts an exclamation point of how they really want to get to the ball, especially when you go to, like you say, Jamon McCoy, Stukes, and Masses, guys who have been doing that in their college career and have that part of their arsenal as their number one asset.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, there was a player, Josh Hines Allen, was second in the NFL in quarterback pressures. Trayvon Walker was hurt, so he was a little bit limited. So that's a case where your defensive line marrying up with your secondary, getting some pressure on the quarterback. It can be better in Jacksonville, no question. But they were so good against the runs, allowing just 85.6 yards per game, that it put the ball in the hands of the opposing quarterbacks. They had to throw a little bit more because they weren't able to run it, which set up the possibility for turnovers by the Jacksonville defense. You get pressure on the quarterback, and you have a mindset in your secondary and players that can then take it from there in the secondary to go be aggressive and ball hawking and get tips and get interceptions and that sort of thing. That's what I think the Raiders, what would be a real successful development for the Raiders is getting the pass rush and then having ball hawks like Clay was talking about in the secondary that can take it from there and take advantage of maybe an errant throw or a throw that's just off or a throw that sailed on the quarterback, and not just for it to fall for an incompletion, but go up and get it. And that's where I really believe that a guy like Javon McCoy can be so important, because he is wired like that. There's guys that can run fast. There's guys that can cover and have the skill and all of that, and that's really important. But the next level dudes are the guys that are also not just aggressive in going to getting the ball and being confident in being aggressive, but also have the technique and the skill to be able to go get the ball. It's ball tracking. It's aggressiveness and it's confidence. It's being able to hold on to the ball when it's in your hands. How many times have you seen interceptions slip through the hands of Raider cornerbacks or secondary players, and the next thing you know, it's a touchdown going the other way, or a 3rd and 16 throw to complete a big first down. So it's all of those things, but I think if the Raiders can marry up what we're talking about, getting more pass rush outside of just Max Crosby on the quarterback, and then the secondary being able to take advantage of that, what the heat that the quarterback is playing under, and turning that into some more interceptions would really, really go a long way. By the way, guys, I always talk about Sal's Mexican Restaurant, but since 1942, Sal's Mexican Restaurants have been serving the best Mexican food in California's Central Valley. From their award-winning salsas to all their classics like chili carne and chili verde, they've been go-to restaurants for multiple generations. But here's the thing. Sal's, you don't even have to be in California or the Central Valley to even enjoy this. All you have to do is go to salsmexicanrestaurant.com. That's salsmexicanrestaurant.com, and they will hook you up. You go online, you put your order in, and whatever you order, wherever you are, it'll get delivered to you. And this way, your next party, your next family get-together, or your next tailgate is set up. If you do live in the Central Valley, or maybe you're just passing through, make sure to stop by their locations in Selma, Fresno, or Madera. And when you do, ask for Sal, Carl, or any manager and let them know that the Morning Tailgate and Raider Nation Radio sent you. Or again, just go to salsmexicanrestaurant.com to get hooked up.
And I got to then understand a portion of it when I was at Berkeley, because Berkeley's right next to Oakland, and a lot of my teammates in Berkeley were, diehard Raiders fans, and just being around Oakland, getting to experience the Raiders, I'm like, okay, these guys are crazy. And then now being in Las Vegas and, interacting with a lot more Raiders fans, being a part of the Raiders organization, it's been such a blessing. And whether people, whatever they have to say about the Raiders organization, I know whenever I go to a fight every single Sunday, I know I want the people who are going to ride and die. And those are what the Raiders fans and Raiders culture has portrayed to me so far. So I'm hyped and I'm blessed to be a part of it. And it's given me that much motivation to do everything possible I can to then best serve, like I said, my teammates, coaches, and the culture and the fans. It's just giving me a whole nother level that I want to get to.
That's Raiders rookie quarterback Fernando Mendoza on The Rush with Max Crosby, talking about his new understanding and appreciation for Raider Nation. Got a touch of it, a little bit of a feeling for it during his time at Cal. By the way, if you're not familiar with the Bay Area and Cal and Berkeley, it's literally right next door to Oakland. It's just a few minutes away. Under depending on traffic, of course. So it's a neighboring city to Oakland and to the Bay Area, and so it makes a whole lot of sense that he ran into a whole lot of people that are still Raider fans to this day and not going anywhere. So he got a little bit of a taste. So maybe there's a little bit of irony that's where he ended up, from Miami to Berkeley, and then bounced obviously to Indiana, where he won a national championship. But good to see that he's getting indoctrinated into the Raider way, into Raider Nation way of life, and his understanding now of wanting to reward you to the point where you're going to be out there supporting him, which I know Raider Nation will, especially when the winning starts and Allegiant Stadium becomes a real challenge for opposing teams to play in. And Clay, I think we both understand how realistic that is for Allegiant Stadium to be a true asset. I know that it's easy right now for people around the country to sometimes see what Allegiant Stadium looks like, with the opposing team's fans. But you got to understand that there's a reason for that. The Raiders and they would be the first to admit it, they haven't held up their end of the bargain in terms of winning enough to really convince the fans to hold on to their tickets without trying to cash in and, selling them to an opposing fan. When the Raiders start winning, that whole thing's going to get turned around. It's not always going to be 100%. No stadium is 100% anymore. That's just, those days are over. But when the Raiders start winning and it starts rolling, that place is going to, we've seen it when it's a true Raider crowd, and you start building wins and building success. That thing is going to be a real handful for opposing teams to come try to deal with on a Sunday in the fall.
It's inevitable, and in fact, I think this year we'll see a major swing of Buffalo fans when that game happens here at Allegiant Stadium, because Buffalo fans, they plan their vacations a couple years out of where Bills are going to be playing, on the road. So this is just part of the nature of that. And my friend Chris, who owns Naked City, that's a Bills bar. They've been taking requests ever since November. Okay, yep. So those are one of the things. But, on other games, like against the Broncos and the Chargers, and when Kansas City comes in, can we outdo them? Can we push that a little bit further? When the Rams play here, can you fix that? So I think having Mendoza in the fold does. If fans know that Mendoza is getting some starting time, getting some valuable playing time, I think that's part of the quotient there that changes things as far as perception about Raider Nation showing up to games, riding or dying with Mendoza, if they know that there's going to be meaningful snaps in the wake here in this upcoming season.
Yeah, to quote Al Davis, just win, baby. That's all it's going to take. I'm telling you right now, it's not that complicated for anybody that wants to make it complicated or wants to make it too big of a deal. If the Raiders start winning, the fans will be there every Sunday, and it's going to be a Raider-centric crowd. And when it becomes a Raider-eccentric crowd on a daily basis or a weekly basis, it's going to look entirely different. It's easy again to kind of be lazy and judge it on what you've seen. What you've seen so far is the results of a Raiders team that's lost a bunch of football games, lost a bunch of games at home, fired coaches, brought in new coaches. Look, it's all part of it. And not finger pointing or anything like that, just acknowledging what has happened since the Raiders got here in 2020. It's just as easy to picture a period of time when the Raiders are going to be winning, and when they do, not if they do, but when they do, that whole thing is going to get turned around. So just to quote Al Davis, just win, baby. That's it. That's as complicated as it is. We're going to go back out to the Raider Nation radio line, listener line, because Raider 66, our good friend Raider 66, is on hold and ready to chime in. How's it going, Raider 66?
Going okay, guys. How you doing today?
All right.
Doing all right.
You're absolutely right about that. It is just win, baby. Because back in the 80s, the Dodgers had a phenomenon called Fernando Mania. And it was standing room only. It was all Dodger fans. This new Fernando Mania that we've got here in Las Vegas, if he's shown to be the starter from week one, you are going to see an uptick on Raider Nation filling those seats. And if they start winning, now Vegas is a different animal because it is a tourist town. You have a lot of corporations that have blocks of tickets to give out to these tourists. So you're not going to knock that out completely. But once they start winning, Raider Nation will come back in force. They will be buying those tickets on the secondary market and filling it up, and you're going to see a lot of silver and black in the town. I've never had a problem or thought that Fernando would be mentally, weak or mentally affected by the NFL season and getting hit and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I worry about. I worry about an actual injury. A la J.J. McCarthy. Remember the Raiders took him out. he didn't do too well sitting on the sidelines and studying things that first year because he's still trying to recover. But that's my worry, is that an injury happens if the rest of the team isn't up to his standards. Vinny, you and I, years ago, seems like a decade ago now, but years ago, we argued against Raider Nation that said, Derek Carr's a bust, get rid of him. And we both said, Derek Carr's not the problem. If you bring the rest of the team up, if you bring the defense up to his level, you got a whole different ballgame. And that's what I think with Fernando. If the rest of the team is up to what we expect his level to be, especially the offensive line, keeping him safe, then, hey, why not start him the whole year? Let's go. Because if we have a bad year, it means we got a higher draft pick to give him more weapons next year. So we are in a win-win situation. My three things of going is going to be kind of generic. The defense, I want them to be opportunistic. Mm-hmm. That will show me improvement. How many years has it been that we've been in single digits in interceptions and low double digits for turnovers completely? Yeah. We need to, no third and long, as the previous caller said, we got them in 3rd and 15. It's like they got us over a barrel. We need to stop that. We need to get off the field and let the offense take over. The offense, I want them to take the will out of the other team. I want them to be a pain in the butt to the defense. On 3rd and 1, we get the first down. We have those long sustaining drives that just suck the will right out of the defense. And then the next time up, we go quick strike and we just bust them with a 60-yard touchdown pass and just demoralize them. And then special teams, be a weapon. It has been so long, so many years since we've had a return for a touchdown, punt or kickoff, that we need to turn that into a weapon. And then if you get stalled around the 40, 45-yard line, have that kicker that can put it through the uprights from 60-plus and be a weapon and turn this team around. If those three things go, we are definitely on the right track, and that'll be big improvement from what we've seen lately. Thank you guys for the time. Have a great day. Have a great weekend, and go Raiders.
Oh, thank you, 66.
You too, Raider 66. Actually, J.J. McCarthy is a pretty good example of not playing as a rookie. And, yeah, I know that he got hurt, and that's why he had to sit there and watch on the sidelines. But what good did that do him necessarily? Was he did sitting on the sideline miraculously? Oh, I could go play NFL quarterback just by sitting here and watching.
No.
In actuality, they went from winning 14 games in 2024 with Sam Darnold, and it was a great fun year for the Vikings. But you knew that Sam Darnold, even though in retrospect maybe they should have just held on to Sam Darnold, it's a conversation for another day. But they didn't, because they had J.J. McCarthy. They had just invested a first-round pick in J.J. McCarthy, hand it over to him, say goodbye to Sam Darnold. Here comes J.J. McCarthy, and he's not ready. And part of the reason that he wasn't ready is because the year before he sat and watched rather than actually played. I know it was an injury, but so by circumstance he had to sit and watch. But my point is, what good did it really do him watching? Like how did he magically get better standing there on the sidelines and watching than actually playing? So I would contend that him not playing in 2024 contributed to how not ready he was in 2025 and how that looked really bad, and people ended up losing their jobs. Now they brought in Kyler Murray, and so there you go. That didn't serve any real practical purpose. It didn't lead him to be better off because he was standing over there on the sidelines and watching NFL football up close and personal and getting to watch Sam Darnold do his thing, and by osmosis he was going to improve. I get it. There is merit to watching sometimes. There is. I'm not discounting that. But it's more important, Clay, for me to actually get out there and play. That's how you learn. And that's also how the Vikings would have had a much better idea of what they had in J.J. McCarthy, or didn't have necessarily going into 2025.
That's a great current example of you wait too long and you try not to overburden somebody, and the expectations are high, but the results are minimal. And like you said, people got fired. General manager got kicked out, and there was something that could be said about one missed player, and that quarterback is so important, especially when you go and draft them that high. You have to find a return on investment, not only just in results and production, but you got to see where the direction is going and where he is at, especially early on, because if you wait too long, it'll be too late.
And they didn't. That was out of their hands necessarily. They couldn't play him because
of the injury.
But it shows you that you're not there's, to me, I don't know how to put. I don't see that there's like this massive benefit to just sitting there and watching. And you're right. If another team decides to hold off too long, by decision, not by out of circumstance, like with the Vikings, who's to say you're not going to be in that same? But the point is, Fernando Mendoza. There's going to be a transition whenever he gets on the field, whether it's this year or next year, right? I mean, there is, because until you actually go out there and play at the NFL level, there's going to be uncertainty, but B, there's going to be a transition. You have to get up to speed in this game. You have to get acclimated to your surroundings, acclimated to the other team, acclimated to seeing, other defenses, acclimated to getting to the line of scrimmage and making decisions, getting acclimated to developing chemistry with your offensive line, developing chemistry with your wide receivers, all of those things, seeing the game in an NFL way rather than a college way, adjusting to how quickly things happen, how complicated the defense is going to make it for you. The process of understanding where the pressure is going to come from, audibling to another play, switching to the better play. All of those things you can pretend like you're understanding it standing over there on the sidelines, but until you actually get out there and play, there's going to be a transition, and I just don't feel like the right way to do that for Fernando, unless he's just not ready. I'll give you that. If he's just not ready at all by the end of training camp or at any point during the season, then obviously, to just do the basic type of things. But I still see more merit if it's close, or if he's like, yeah, we feel like we could go out there and be competitive with him. We got a good enough offensive line to protect him. Let's get him out there and get some games under his belt, get some experience under his belt. Put it this way, Clay. What's the hard line rule for evaluating college quarterbacks coming into the NFL? Isn't there an amount of games that people want to see, that
Always.
the NFL wants to see?
Always,
right?
Yes. And it's almost like you got to see at least 20 games, and sometimes quarterbacks get drafted with even less than 12. We saw that with Anthony Richardson.
Yeah,
less than 12 starts, that could be scary.
There's a cause and effect there. I mean, they don't just throw that number out. I actually think it's 25, but there's proof that quarterbacks that have played more in college and gotten a certain amount of starts under their belt in college are better off in the NFL, whether it's early on in the NFL or later on in the NFL, whatever the case might be. That playing time that they got, those X amount of starts, let's just say 25 starts, benefited them. The NFL was able to get more body of work to base it on. The quarterback himself got more practical experience. I know it was in college, not the NFL, but there's still something to be said about playing in live games and making decisions and having to make plays and having to get over obstacles, all of those things that go into practical experience rather than watching from the sidelines. It's why teams, want to see that many games. So why put that off? I don't especially in a season where there's very little expectations in terms of wins and losses. This is being set up as a season of development for the Raiders. Why not use that development time with a minimal amount of expectations in terms of the wins and losses to also get your quarterback up to speed? Clay, I think you've got some giveaways right now.
Clear the phone lines to give you a chance to win tickets to go see the Totally Tubular Festival over at the Sahara, Las Vegas at the Pool. This is an all-'80s rock band festival. You got Flock of Seagulls, Bow Wow Wow, Thomas Dolby, Tommy Two-Tone, and more. Be caller number 9 at 702-365-9200. You got to pick these tickets up at Lotus Broadcasting, 702-365-9200.
Some say to me.
From the text line, 702-365-9200, here on the Morning Tailgate, Raider Nation Radio 920, asking you what are the 3 things you need to see in order for the Raiders to be successful. East Oakland Raider from the 510 says, competent quarterback play. Number 2, no stupid penalties. Number 3, get off the field on 3rd and long. And number 4, special teams, do your job. That's another special teams request. And we also see Dane from the 510 saying, be competitive in all three phases, offense, defense, special teams, quarterback play, and keeping the head coaches. Said those three things should be competitive. Thank you for the text. We got more coming in here. But obviously, with all the components, we're starting to see a trend. 1 out of every 3 people bringing up special teams, even the callers.
Yeah, and I absolutely believe that as well, and it's a good excuse me, it's a good part of the team to keep an eye on, and you need it to be really well. I guess for me, in the bigger scheme of things, that's something that I think they're going to be drilling and getting better at, and for the future, for the now. All of those things, but in a bigger picture sense, I think the offensive line. I really like. Also, hey, let's face it, Clint Kubiak has something to prove too here as well. So, if what he is cooking up and scheming up, and the leadership and everything at the end of the year, you are, as a fan base, as an organization, hey, we feel we really got the head coach in place. That's huge as well, because let's face it, recent history suggests here in Las Vegas with the Raiders. That hasn't been the case. In fact, it's been the case the last few years where time to move on and go find another coach. If the Raiders can get to the end of this year knowing full well Clint Kubiak and this staff is the staff, man, that's another game changer as well, because it's been few and far between here in Las Vegas for the Raiders.
Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal joins us next on Raider Nation Radio 920.
Hey, babe, where are you going?
Flying into hour number 3 of the Morning Tailgate Show, it's Vinny Bonsignor and Clay Baker. And without further ado, always great to talk to my former colleague and my current good friend and always good friend, Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the great columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Ed, first and foremost, how are you doing, my friend?
Good, buddy. How are you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah,
I can't remember the last time I was out at the Raiders. One day I missed you out there, so I'm trying to think the last time I'm getting ready for UNLV football camp coming up. Will I be seeing the young man out there?
Yes, you will. Absolutely, 1,000%. Yes, we know who we're talking about there. Yeah. But we will be seeing each other too as this NFL season and college football season gets underway. But interestingly, we're not going to start off with the NFL with Ed. We're going to talk about the NBA and the very strong likelihood. It's almost, I would say, inevitable, right? Ed, at this point, it's just a matter of who and where the NBA is going to be in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think so. Vinny. I think some of these expansion names that are coming out in terms of who wants to be in ownership groups have made it as serious as people probably thought it could be. And I just think it's inevitable. I think they're going to expand. I think this is one of the cities they're coming to. I think that there's a good chance whoever comes will open up in T-Mobile Arena while an arena is being built. And I think that's the way it's going to go. I think that there will be a team here sooner than later.
Well, I love what you wrote in your column about Jerry Colangelo putting his bid in to lead the NBA expansion in Las Vegas, because we've seen Jerry here in Southern Nevada for many years, because he was, the point of the spear to bring USA basketball to Las Vegas and use the facilities at the campus of UNLV. What do you think is the impetus of that? Because now we have a guy that's, an absolute known commodity in the NBA and somebody that the NBA has worked with for many, many years.
I think what you really liked was the headline that said, "That's gold to Jerry."
That's it?
Any kind of Seinfeld reference.
Yes, and everything else is 1B. Yes, that's 1A.
Exactly. You and I are going to be excited about.
Thank you.
No, I mean, look, you said it best. He and I quoted Dan Bickley from Arizona in the column, Clay, and he said, "Look, there might not be 4 other people who has had more influence in the NBA than Jerry Colangelo over the history of the league." When his name comes up, you have to stop and listen. Mm-hmm. No offense to Bill Foley. What he's done with the Knights has been incredible. What he brought to this town in a time that it needed it most, with pro sports and with the shooting and everything, and the timeliness and how well they've done over the years and only missed the playoffs one time. You can't say enough about Bill Foley as an owner with that franchise. Nothing against Magic Johnson and all his history at the NBA. But to me, Jerry Colangelo brings a different level. Of his experience, of his profound knowledge of owning and running NBA teams, of the impact he's had on this league. As I wrote, Jerry, when David Stern was live as the commissioner, anything that happened in the league that he needed help with, the first call he made was Jerry Colangelo. And that went to changing how the game was played, to any kind of, issues within the league. This is who he calls you. He knows everyone in the league. Everyone knows him. So when his name came out the other day and his quotes came out as an interested party and to be, lead this ownership group, I think everybody said, whoa, now it's getting serious. Now, when the elephant in the room is he's 86. So, that people are going to, turn to that and say, look, he's 86. Is this the time? But as Bickley said, people who build empires don't retire. And I think, he's proven in the last, however many years that he's still very viable. He still wants to work. He still wants to be involved. And I just think a name like this is very intriguing to an ownership group for, to bring a team here.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Jerry, and I've had a chance to talk to Jerry Colangelo during my years covering the NBA, going all the way back, way back, is his experience in, and it's relatively recently. The years fly by, but this is somebody that, whether you're talking about the Phoenix Suns when they were just starting out, or more contemporarily, the Arizona Diamondbacks, right? Starting a franchise in a new city, in a new horizon, and being able to build that from the ground up. And say what you want about the Arizona Diamondbacks, but they've won a World Series, right? And they've been a successful franchise, right? And he had obviously a major say in that. So how much do you think that experience of being able to build a stadium, being able to get it, started from the ground up, plays into this as well, and in a world that he knows really well in terms of the NBA?
Yeah, Vinny, I think it's everything. I just look at his past experience. As Bickley said, he was there with the Bulls. He had his choice between the Bucks and the Suns. He chose Phoenix. He had them as a model franchise for decades upon decades. You mentioned the Diamondbacks. They win the World Series fourth year in. Of him taking over. I just think that, his experience there in Phoenix and what he's done, and it goes, as you said, it goes beyond basketball. I mean, people will tell you there would be no downtown district, no entertainment district in Phoenix without Jerry Colangelo. Right. We know what he's done at Grand Canyon University in terms of helping them get their status as Division I. Mm-hmm. He's just done so much for Phoenix and for the Arizona area, and building things, and as Vinny said, getting these teams going, and from the outset, that I just think when you look to a town like Vegas, things get done here, as we know, but there's nothing wrong with having a guy lead that charge who's been so successful in another place and has proven it can be done, and proven it can be done at a successful and a high level. And again, there are some very impressive names who want to own the team there. It says a lot, I think, about Vegas and the impetus of having an NBA team here, people involved in these ownership groups. I mentioned Foley, I mentioned Magic. I mean, there's some very high level people here, very successful people here who want to be the ones to bring the team to Southern Nevada. So that says a lot, I think, about Vegas, about the chase for an NBA team here when you have these kind of people involved at ownership groups, ownership levels who want to be the ones. I just believe that he knows so many people in the league. He knows the market. As Clay said, he brought USA Basketball here to UNLV for their camps. He was the one who did that. I think, Colangelo knows about markets and about market strategy and how to get into a market, as Vinny said, as he did in Phoenix with what he built there. And I just think this is if his ownership group is right, if the money's there, and we're talking about a lot of money, this guy, I think, will at least be at the forefront with a lot of people in the league because how well he's respected around the league. He's in the Hall of Fame. His name's on the court at the Hall of Fame. He has a lot going for him.
Lead sports columnist with the Las Vegas Review-Journal, Ed Graney, here with us on Raider Nation Radio 920. With that, when you talk about the money and the kind of like figures that we're kind of seeing behind the Colangelo group, we're looking at figures of like capital of like between 12 and 13 billion. Do you kind of feel like, all right, that kind of sets a floor that, there's a lot of people that are aspiring to be a part of this possible ownership group for the NBA in Las Vegas. Does that set a floor and new heights of what we're trying to expect? And maybe that kind of like starts to push some people away, or maybe does it attract more when they know what kind of numbers we're dealing with here now?
It's interesting you bring that up, Clay. That's the highest I've seen, and I don't know about you, but that's the highest I've seen when it comes to what the floor might be and what you might be talking about to own a team here. Look, the owners, and Vinny covered the league for a long time, the owners are going to go down this road, and there's going to be a lot of reasons why, but one of the main reasons is going to be the money. That's obvious in terms of why they would even go down this road, to have two more expansion teams. So whether it pushes guys like Foley or Magic away, I'm not so sure about that. But in terms of bringing more people in, that's a pretty high number in terms of what that floor is. So I don't know if it pushes people where it brings them in, but that was the first time I saw those kind of numbers, and it's pretty daunting ones. But they're going to have to. They can say it, and they're just going to have to prove it in terms of with financials and if it comes down to it, and they're the group or there's other groups involved here, they're going to have to prove they can finance this thing and come up with the money that it's going to take to have a team here.
All right, so T-Mobile Arena is obviously in play. Bill Foley's group would like it to not just be in play, but be the place where the NBA ultimately plays. I'm not quite sure that's how that's going to go down. There's a lot of moving parts to this. There's a lot of powerful people that are involved, including talking about Jerry Colangelo. But ultimately, in terms of where the team plays, what sense do you get of that? And I just believe that, especially if it's not going to be Bill Foley's group, that whoever comes in is going to, part of the way that they're going to make their money back is by building an arena, but also building in and around it an entertainment district to start generating revenue, because this is going to be a very expensive proposition. But what's your sense on where ultimately the team will play?
Well, I think ultimately, if it happens the way the people are putting it out there in terms of when it would happen, I think they would start at T-Mobile Arena. And Foley, I know, has said that, if he didn't get the bid, he would not have big issues with them playing at T-Mobile Arena, at least to start. Totally agree with you in terms of what's built around it. And that goes back to, again, what Colangelo did in Phoenix.
Yes.
With that entertainment district, with the downtown. He's responsible for that. So that's just another part of his resume to where if they came in with the idea, and I think anyone's coming in with the idea of building an arena. Now, like Foley obviously has talked also about the renovations you can do to T-Mobile Arena for however hundreds of millions of dollars you want to put forward to that. And it probably does need to be, upgraded in terms of if you're going to house two teams there in that realm. But I agree with you also that if there is a new arena, which I think there would be, or at least that would be in the plans of whoever the owner is, that a district around it, or whether you want to say restaurants, hotels, whatever the entertainment district is, would be part of that, because that's how obviously they make a lot more of their money back when they do those things. And you go back to what he did in Phoenix, it's kind of a blueprint for it.
For so many years, as people are kicking around the idea of the NBA in Las Vegas, the name LeBron James always comes up as like, well, he, a lot of people have been tied, their prospective bids to also having LeBron James into the fold. It's not necessarily a given, is it? Because depending on all the ownership groups that are out there, especially with the Colangelo one, I don't see LeBron's name mentioned, and it almost feels like, even to the most common sports fan who brings up NBA in Vegas, his name seems to be a part of the mix as a part of an ownership group, but that's not necessarily reality.
Well, it's been quiet for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
One player you keep hearing about, obviously, and who's come out and talked about having an ownership group is Magic. But yeah, I think. Look, I don't. No one wants to speak for LeBron. I don't know if in the past it's just been a curiosity towards like, yeah, I'd be interested in being involved in something. I'd be interested in maybe joining an ownership group. He's obviously not going to lead an ownership group.
Correct.
You're at levels there where you're talking even LeBron would have to be within a group in terms of how much it would cost and what it would mean to own a team.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right. That name's been a little quiet on the forefront since Foley came forward, since Magic came forward, and now Colangelo. Would I be surprised in the end if he's involved in a group? No. I mean, it's LeBron James. Who wouldn't want to kind of gauge from his success and his opinions on the NBA and the league and what it would mean to have a team here and what you would need to have a successful team here. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if, in fact, he's part of one of these groups or part of a group that's coming forward that we don't know about. But it has been quiet on the LeBron front for a while.
Do we have a timeline sort of established in terms of when the NBA is going to make its final call?
Well, Adam Silver's talking Tuesday night at Summer League, so I'm sure that's questioned 1 through 15 in terms of the expansion and when it's going to happen. I don't believe they've come out with, hey, we want this done by 2028 or 2029 or whenever. But
that's when the team would land, right?
That's when the team would land. In terms of a timeline of them making a decision, they've been very coy about that. I think each time he's talked to the media, and I think Mick's done a really good job for us at the paper, kind of keeping people up to date on this. They've been very coy about a specific timeline to where, hey, this is when you're going to hold the press conference for us to say yes or no. Each time he's talked about it, he's kind of updated it as, the biggest news was they were actually exploring expansion, obviously, and that kind of made for headlines that they were, oh, my God, this is probably going to happen now. But I don't know if there's been a specific timeline. It's like, okay, by this date, we're going to tell you yes or no. It's just more of the exploration phase as we speak. And they were going to explore ownership groups, and now we have 3 or 4 here that have come forward with statements that they want to be the ones.
If there was an imprint for a new stadium and development property, this has to be close to the Strip, wouldn't you think?
Boy, where's the room down there?
Exactly.
With that, I drove by it again yesterday on my way home from Summer League with the ballpark. Yeah, I mean, you'd hope, you want it. You wanted, those districts and those entertainments around to where people are going to be. I'm not so sure. That's above my pay grade, Clay, where that thing's going to be. I just think if we're covering it in the infant stages, we're all going to be at T-Mobile in the infant stages.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so out of curiosity, I think it's going to be pretty much a home run, slam dunk. The NBA in Las Vegas. The NBA or Las Vegas just feels like an NBA type city to me. And it's star driven. Yeah. Whether you're talking about people that are in town, to have some fun going over to a game at whatever arena is, and the local fan base getting behind it. How successful though do you think it has a chance to be? Obviously, you got to win and all those types of things, but just the notion and the concept of the NBA in Las Vegas, does that just kind of equal, yeah, that's going to work to you, or are you a little suspicious?
$1 million question that you ask. I don't know if I'm suspicious. I mean, what's been the cliche about Vegas forever? Oh, it's a basketball town. Well, Since I've been here, and really the only thing we have to go on at this point is UNLV basketball. I mean, it's in Summer League and USA basketball. Now, UNLV hasn't been to the NCAA tournament since 2013. So there's a reason that fan base has dwindled and, is more apathetic than not until they start winning again. And I think they have a coach in Josh Pastner now who understands that they have to win to bring people out there. You can do all the entertainment stuff. You can do all the free stuff here and there. You have to win. You have to win to get people out there. So it's interesting in that because of what the Knights did, and that they won their first year, you'd hope that the idea of fans wouldn't be, well, that's what happens with all expansion teams, because that's not what happens with all expansion teams. I mean, that was a very unique situation that they did, and again, all props to Foley, McCrimmon, McPhee, the people who built that out there. I mean, that's the standard right now in the league. But Vinny, I do think ultimately it would work. I do think there's basketball fans in this town. I was out at Summer League again yesterday. We know the USA basketball is here. They have a footprint in Las Vegas. People would not be unaware of the NBA if it came here. They would know a lot about it. So I do think it would work. But the A's are also coming, and you just asked $1 million question. How much can the market sustain? I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts. How much can this market sustain when it comes to pro sports, given how big the market is?
Yeah, I think both have a chance to be perfectly fine. I think the A's, to me, and everything that I'm hearing, the owner is going to start reinvesting some of the new revenue streams into the team, and they've got a bright young future. I mean, they've got a bright young core of players, so I think they're going to, by the time they get here, it's going to be a fun team to watch. Plus, there's always going to be fans of the Yankees and the Dodgers and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And in terms of the NBA, I think that it's interesting to me as opposed to selling hockey, which has done fabulous. But it's helped that they won at a high level, right? If they weren't winning, how many fans are going to be rushing to go see some of the Buffalo Sabres or whoever's coming in, the San Jose Sharks, who's ever going to who is coming in? Whereas the NBA, even if the expansion team struggles for a little while, just the fact that you're going to be seeing the biggest stars in the world in basketball every single night and recognizable players across the league, the Victor Wembanyama's, on and on and on, all the great young players that are in the NBA. When the Lakers come to town, that's going to be a hot ticket. So I think that the identifiability between fans right now and NBA stars is going to be able to carry it even during some of the struggles. And then when they start playing well, if they start playing well, then that's just going to substantiate it even that much more. I just feel like there's enough of a buy-in just for the NBA to see the biggest stars on a nightly basis wherever they are playing to kind of carry things through whatever struggles they might have early on.
And I think to piggyback on that, it certainly helps, right, to have 35 to 40 million people coming through the airport every year. Right, because you're always going to have that kind of tourist attraction. But the NBA season comes in during a lot of convention business. So you're going to have a kind of a plugged-in tourist audience that's going to be aching to go to these games. But number two is that Las Vegas as a market is going to be very agreeable to NBA free agents. So before the team, and perhaps if they don't win right away, you're going to have a lot of marketable, knowable personalities from the NBA as free agents that join this league and join this team in Vegas that will be very attractive for a lot of fans to want to go and see that for sure, because I think as the years go on, Las Vegas will be a great bargaining chip for any free agent, because who wouldn't want to live the kind of lifestyle in Las Vegas if you're an NBA player?
Well, to your point also, if you remember back in the day, Colangelo, people took less money to play for them because of him. Right. Players loved playing for him. They respected him. They still respect him to this day. His relationships he made with USA Basketball throughout the league, I think you're completely right on that. And I think Vinny's point of it's a league of stars. The NBA is a league of stars. So while you're going to go to the A's game to see Ohtani, you're going to go to an NBA game to see the stars of that league. So, yeah, I think players, and Dan Bickley told me this the other day, you don't understand how much players respect him. So you're right in terms of free agency, and if guys have decisions to make on where they want to play, I think this would be a city that would be really opening eyes to where guys want to play.
Yeah, I completely agree. Ed Graney, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, my old friend. We'll be seeing each other quite often moving forward, so can't wait for that. Thank you for the great insight on the NBA. Next time we catch up with you, we'll talk about the Raiders and UNLV football for sure. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, have a good day. That was Ed Graney from the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Does a great job in everything, including UNLV, which they're setting up for a nice season as well. But yeah, I think you're going to hear some other names that pop into this. The Walton family, Bill and Nancy Lurie. They're local, and they're part of the whole Walton family. They got a whole bunch of money, so keep an eye on that group. This is a long ways away. It's in a short period of time, but there's some heavy hitters that are going to be involved in all this, and we'll see where it all goes. But Clay, I think it's gonna be great when the NBA finally gets to Vegas.
Yeah, it definitely is, because this town really intrinsically, going back to the Runnin' Rebels of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, this town loves basketball, and you can see it through the participation of the NBA Summer League. And we'll turn our attention next to NFL with Matt Youmans, the senior editor and host of Primetime on VSIN. The NFL Betting Guide is out with VSIN. We'll talk to him next about the Raiders, surprise teams, and overrated teams here on Raider Nation Radio 920. Back here on the Morning Tailgate, it's Raider Nation Radio 920 here on this Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Vinny Bonsignor, Clay Baker here with you. Get your thoughts up at 702-365-9200 on the text line as we turn our attention back to the NFL, because this is a very special time of the year when you go and start treating yourself and doing the homework on the National Football League in this kind of quiet period of the season. And what you got to do is you got to listen to the experts over at VSIN. Our good buddies over at VSIN 1230 The Game here locally is Matt Youmans, senior editor and host of Prime Time on VSIN Monday through Friday, beginning at 3 p.m. Pacific. And it's now time for the NFL Betting Guide. You can get it up at vsin.com. It's right there on the front page. Click and subscribe so you can get the 110-page colossus that Matt Youmans and the great group of writers and analysis that is coming from VSIN. Matt, thank you for joining us. What's it like to put together an NFL Betting Guide when each year you get larger and larger? But this time around, not only beyond the team profiles, you do so many different things with not only getting betting splits, but you also find NFL key stats that predict a team's improvement or decline. And for Raider Nation, everyone wants to know, are the Raiders in that mix of being an outlier of a team that's destined for possible improvement in 26?
Clay Baker, Zero Res spokesman. Great to be on with you today, buddy.
Hey. Thank you, and we'll be at your home later this afternoon.
I probably need it.
Right.
That'd be a good idea. You know what? It is a special time of year because every team is optimistic. Nobody's lost a game yet, right? So everybody thinks they're improved. They're going to have a better season. And as far as the VSIN NFL Betting Guide goes, you said 110 pages. It's like a preseason magazine that you pick up at a bookstore, but it's a digital version. You can print it out if you want. But the entire thing is written from a betting perspective, and I think that's why it's valuable. You know, so many people obviously betting the NFL, and we put a lot of time and work into this thing, and I think it's one of the best things we do every year is the NFL Preview magazine. Are the Raiders going to be an outlier? I'll tell you what. I've been a Raiders fan, believe it or not, since I was a kid. I was growing up in Chicago. I did not like the Bears. I love the Snake Stabler.
Yes.
And all the Rebels, you know, the characters in the Rebels that the Raiders had at the time. It was my favorite team to watch. It's been a bit embarrassing in recent years. And hopefully this new regime gets it turned around with Tom Brady and others in the front office. And I really think they are going to be headed in the right direction for the first time in a while. I know the Derek Carr team that made the playoffs. Other than that, since Raiders have been in Vegas, there's not much to be proud about. And I think that finally you're seeing the foundation for a team that can compete and can win and maybe be in playoff contention late in the season. I don't want to go overboard being too optimistic about this because, look, we're talking about a 3-14 team that had a lot of holes to fill. It's got a lot of improvement to make, and it's very difficult to climb the ladder when you're in arguably the NFL's second toughest division, right? Right now, the NFC West is the best division in football. AFC West is probably number 2. And it's just tough to climb the ladder and pick up any division wins and make a bunch of improvement in the win column when you got to beat the Chargers, Broncos, and Chiefs in whatever order you want to put those 3 in. But I do think there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic about the Raiders being a lot more competitive and being a more professional organization and not being an embarrassment. And I'll let you take it from there if you have any other questions. But, you know, we're going for, I think, what's reasonable improvement for the Raiders? I would say going from 3-14 to 6 wins or 7 wins. You know, if the Raiders win 7, I think it'd be a great year because the schedule is extremely difficult, really.
How much better would that be if Fernando Mendoza was the quarterback, not Kirk Cousins? If they get your 4 wins, and it's Fernando Mendoza as the quarterback, and he gets that experience and gets that playing time under his belt to set himself up for better success moving forward.
Vinny, I think eventually it is going to be Mendoza, but it's not going to be in the first month. And they're serious about letting him learn, I think, and progress the right way. And you don't want to start Mendoza, I don't think, necessarily right away. And Cousins is a perfect mentor, I think, at this stage of his career. So if you look at that schedule and you say, okay, you start out the season with Cousins, and after 5 or 6 games, if it's not happening, if the Raiders are 2-4 or 1-5, is there a spot where you can make a quarterback change? When you look at the schedule, it's tough to find the spot where you're going to make a change.
It's almost better to start off. the schedule is the easiest in those first 3 weeks. Those first
I know.
That's the conundrum right there.
That is, but it seems like this front office is committed to not doing that, right? It seems like they're committed to Cousins starting the season and Mendoza learning behind him. Somebody suggested out of Denver, I can't remember who it was, about a month ago, that Mendoza was going to be a bust. And I strongly disagree with that. I was a big Fernando Mendoza fan when he was a Cal. And when Indiana picked him up in the transfer portal, I could not believe it. I said, how did Indiana get Mendoza? I thought he was the best quarterback out there. With all the other major programs bidding, how did Kurt Cignetti get Mendoza? Cignetti knew what he was doing. Obviously, the guy's as sharp as it gets. And Mendoza is not going to be a bust for this reason. The quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, the guys who have been bust, have been the guys who are knuckleheads, the guys who don't put in the work, guys who don't read defenses, don't live the right way off the field. Fernando Mendoza is a highly intelligent kid, very disciplined, and he's got the right support system around him to be successful. He might not be a superstar, who knows, but I think he's going to be really, really good, and he's not going to. I'm very confident he's not going to be any sort of a bust.
It's Matt Youmans here with us, senior editor and host of Primetime on VSIN. It's the NFL Betting Guide, which is available now up at vsin.com. Click and subscribe. It's right there on the front page, and you get all the homework that has been done for you by Matt Youmans and the great cast of writers and analysts that do such a wonderful job. It's there available over at vsin.com. And one of the things is that you outline, everyone gets a team profile, but they also go through divisions. And you brought up how difficult the AFC West has been. Do you find any change in the rank and structure of the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos and where they're at as they approach this next season? Because I would have to think that, for Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, is there any sort of are we overvaluing these teams because they have been strong for so long, or do you find that they are continuing on their own strength as they continue on through the season?
Well, that's a good question, because this time a year ago, I was pretty high on the Broncos.
Okay.
Because, a lot of times when you handicap teams, a lot of people look at skill positions first, and they don't really know how to handicap offensive and defensive lines. But I thought going into last year, the Broncos had arguably a top 3 offensive line and top 3 defensive line, and maybe a top 3 defense just in general, right? So that's the foundation for a successful team, even though I think Sean Payton's a little bit overrated at this stage of his career. He's making some mind-boggling game management mistakes.
Yes.
And some of that stuff's got overlooked, but I have not overlooked it. I think Sean Payton's lost a step for sure. But this time a year ago, I was really high on the Broncos. And, in fact, at VSIN, we had a preseason NFL futures draft. It was kind of a snake draft where you could pick any player or team futures. And I took the Broncos to win the AFC West, and I got laughed at by the other guys on the conference call that day. I got the last laugh on that one, obviously. But you know what? A big factor for me last year was the Chiefs were 12-0 in one-score games in 2024. And I thought regression was going to be coming for the first time in a long time. The Chiefs had won the division 9 consecutive years. Their close game luck had been off the charts. And what happened last year? All that luck turned around, right? The Chiefs went 1-9 in one-score games. They were out of it before Mahomes suffered that injury.
Wow.
I think what was that, week 15 in December, right? They were out of it before he went down with the knee injury. So the Broncos were right around 4-1 odds, plus 350, 4-1 this time a year ago to win the division, and I did like them at that time. I think the Broncos are going to regress a little bit this year, and so I'm not picking Denver to win this division. Vinny's probably got some intel on this. This has not been talked about much, but Bo Nix has had 2 ankle surgeries in the offseason, and he's not making the recovery and rehab as quickly as Patrick Mahomes has. And I think that's been covered up a little bit. I don't know if Bo Nix is going to be ready to roll when the season starts. Vinny, have you heard much about Bo Nix?
I just saw a video of him, and he looked pretty good, but that's a video. So,
Right.
but yeah, and on top of that, he's not the level of quarterback as Patrick Mahomes is as well. And I agree. I think that to me, it's shaping up as the Chiefs or the Chargers to me to win that division. But we'll see, how that all plays out. And by the way, to your point earlier, not only are the Raiders playing their AFC West brethren, but they also do play the number one division in the NFL, and that's the NFC West this year. So bad luck for them in that regard. But coming from a newspaper background, we had this thing, it's called replate, where a breaking news happens and you got to stop the presses, replate it to update, whatever just happened. And I was curious how that works for what you guys do, because, you can get it as far as you possibly can before you put this magazine out. And then a move happens and it kind of changes things. And then there's a domino effect to the move. And I'm curious how that may have played into it when the Rams traded for Myles Garrett, and how that maybe you guys had to stop the presses. We got to redo some things here because that was a game changer for the Rams in the most important division or best division in football, and maybe makes them the Super Bowl odds-on favorite. But how does that kind of play into it when you know that the possibility of a big move happening like that can really change a lot of the landscape?
Yeah, I know some of the magazines that are on the newsstands did not. I noticed a couple of them. Might have been Athlon or one of the others. Lindy's came out before,
yes,
right around the Myles Garrett news breaking, and did not have Myles Garrett on the Rams, and I think A.J. Brown on the Patriots. And you don't want to put out an NFL preseason magazine and have stuff like that happen afterwards. A good thing about what we did is that I started writing the NFC West. I know most of the guys were doing the writing after that happened. I think we started about the week after that, so we didn't have to change anything. All the major moves had already happened, so we got that stuff in the magazine. And the thing is, really over the summer, how many moves can happen that can change the needle in the odds, whether it be division odds, win totals, Super Bowl? Not many moves could happen over the summer actually would move the needle, because aside from quarterbacks, how many players move the needle? The Myles Garrett trade does a little bit. Maybe the A.J. Brown thing does a little bit, but not much. I think the Myles Garrett thing obviously solidifies the Rams as Super Bowl favorites, and favorites obviously in the toughest division in the NFL. It might move their win total up a half, but not much, to be honest with you. So we were fortunate that we didn't start doing that. That's the thing, Vinny, when you're working instead of a magazine, you're doing a digital magazine.
Yeah.
You can have later deadlines, right? And also, you don't have any restrictions on how much you can write. So you don't have to worry about column inches. You can write as much as possible. That's one thing about digital magazines I think are a big plus. You can put them out later. You could change on the fly if you had to right away, but we didn't have to. I was high on the Rams, really high on the Rams this time a year ago, and I bet them at Circus Sports at 30-1. This is right after the NFL draft in summer of 2025. I bet the Rams at 30-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. I had them power ranked number one in the league most of the season, and they had two losses in Seattle, one in December, one in the playoffs. The first one in December was an officiating fiasco, and Seattle got lucky to win that game. The second one, give the Seahawks credit. They deserved to win the game in the playoffs, but arguably the top two teams in the NFL in the same division. And the Myles Garrett trade makes that defense even stronger. They picked up Trent McDuffie from KC.
Yep.
Rams look really, really strong. The problem now is you're not getting 30-1. You're getting about 5 or 6-1. So I don't even have a bet on the Rams this time around to win the Super Bowl, even though it's very difficult not to pick the Rams to win the NFC. By the way, just to backtrack a little bit on the Broncos, part of the reason I liked them a year ago is the schedule set up really well for the Broncos to take a leap in that division. You guys remember a year ago, the Broncos had one of the softer schedules in the NFL outside of the division. They had some ugly wins. What was that Thursday night game when they beat the Raiders 10-7? I think one of the worst games ever played.
Brutal.
Yes.
They beat the Jets 13-9, I think, in London. The Broncos were lucky in close games last year and some ugly games. Unlike the Patriots, who really took care of business against a soft schedule and blew out a lot of teams, the Broncos won a lot of close, ugly games last year.
Make sure you get the NFL betting guide. Go online, VSIN.com. It's right there on the front page. Click and subscribe. do your homework right now during this portion of the year, because you get ahead of the game with the great writers and analysts with VSIN, including Matt Youmans, who hosts Primetime on VSIN Monday through Friday beginning at 3 p.m. Pacific. Matt, thank you so much for your time. We look forward to talking again soon.
You bet. Great to be on with you guys. Thanks.
Thank you. That's Matt Youmans at Matt Youmans 24/7 on X. Okay, we'll clear the phone lines before we hit the final sit-down, and we give you a chance to win NBA Summer League tickets. A pair of tickets here for you, good for any day of the NBA Summer League. You can buy your tickets online at unlvtickets.com, but we have a pair of tickets for you for free from Raider Nation Radio 920. Be caller 9 at 702-365-9200. Wrapping it up here on the morning tailgate. Want to thank all the great calls and texts today. We got today on the 3 things you need to see for the Raiders to be successful in 2026. Wanted to read 2 more, Vinny. One from Funky Raider 31. Good morning, Funketeers. Have you seen Ashton Genty's offseason workout routine? Unbelievable. He says, my 3 improvements are offensive line play, number 1. Number 2, all wide receivers stepping up. And 3, better all-around defensive play. We haven't heard too much about the wide receiver play. What about all 3 wide receivers stepping up? That could be a difference maker right there. Also, Snake Man checking in. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Obviously Brock Bowers, the number 1 tight end in the NFL, is going to be front and center on that. But, man, if you could get real contributions, and I believe that they will, from Trey Tucker and Jalen Naylor, and to whatever extent Jack Bech and Dante Thornton, rise up. Malik Benson, keep an eye on him. This could be a real collaborative effort and kind of give the offense that boost that it needs from that position.
Finally, Snake Man writing in, fact of the matter is every one of these players that are currently on this Raiders roster, drafted round 1 through round 3, are good enough to be on any other NFL roster. It's simply a matter of coaching and, just as importantly, developing this roster now. All right, coaching is a factor to it. I think there's been an upgrade in coaching, and I think a lot of it goes along with not only coaches that have been around a while, but coaches that are also noted as teachers. Somebody that's going to be there to make sure that they're not going to allow or tolerate something that's not below standard.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, there's just going to be better teaching, a better message, more cohesion between the coaching, a better scheme, a better plan, better decisions during the game. It's accountability for sure. I am bullish on the talent that's in the Raiders locker room and the work ethic and the care. I think that I don't think that those are going to be issues. Not to say that they have a perfect roster. There's still a lot of work to be done to get this to a championship level roster. But I'm just as insistent on the teaching being better than it has been recently, and I believe that there's going to be an uptick in that.
Go online to Raider Nation Radio 920 AM on YouTube, our brand new YouTube page. It's fantastic. Also, you can stream and find all our podcasts up at LV Sports Network on the app or at lvsportsnetwork.com. Vinny, have a great weekend. Let's talk again on Monday.
You too, buddy. Take care.
Thanks to Vinny, thanks to Matt Youmans, Ed Graney, and all of you. Again, go up online to lvsportsnetwork.com for all our podcasts here. Have a great weekend, everybody. Today, JT is off. He's back on Monday. Jim Rome will be up at noon. Q Myers will be there for you from 2 to 5 here on Raider Nation Radio 920. Have a great day and great weekend, everybody.